So I'm now going to hand you over. So this is a host spotlight from Marsh's Balance Network. So Leslie and Matt, if he's managed to sort out his puncture this morning, not the time to have it, is going to join us and tell us a little bit about their network. So I'm going to change the slide for you. I'm going to go off camera, but over to you, Leslie and Matt.
Thanks, Vanessa. Yes, I did make it after a short sprint from the Old Kent Road, which I don't recommend to anyone. Morning, thanks for having us along and for giving us the opportunity to host this. Yeah, perhaps if we can flip on to the next slide, we'll tell you a little bit about Marsh and our Balance group. So one more as well, please, Lizzie. Thank you. So hopefully before too long we'll be able to host you in person, and wouldn't that be nice to all be back together face to face? But here and now, we just wanted to give you a little bit of sort of insight into our business and more importantly, perhaps, the role that Balance plays for us. So Balance is what we call our colleague resource group, specifically focused on gender equality and inclusion. Before Leslie shares a bit more about Balance, I'll just give you a high level view on who Marsh are for those that haven't heard of us. So we're a very large organisation. We're part of the Marsh McLennan Group, which is a professional services group generally primarily focused in the insurance and risk space, but also then in health, well-being, people associated risks and strategy. And then Oliver Wyman over to the left-hand side is our business that does more strategic and economic consulting. Leslie and I sit within Marsh, and Balance as a group is specific to Marsh, although we do obviously partner with our equivalents in the other businesses. So Marsh alone has about 8.5 billion in revenue globally. We're in 130 countries and have over 40,000 colleagues. That means that there's a great deal of diversity in our business because of where we are around the world and the nature of these different communities in which we operate. But those of you who've ever had any dealings with insurance will also know it means we're probably not a very diverse business, because historically insurance has been very male dominated, very white, and generally coming from quite traditional backgrounds that haven't varied over generations very much. So there's been a material shift, and I think most people in the industry would say that shift in the last probably only 5 years, there's been a real, the tides of change, I suppose, are now outweighing the tides of traditionality. So it's quite an exciting time, and we're investing heavily in our diversity and inclusion culture more broadly. And Leslie, perhaps if you could just, sorry, Vanessa, actually, if you could flip on to the next slide. One of the ways in which we're doing this around the world, but this is specific to the UK, it's very much mirrored around the US and globally, is we set up these colleague resource groups. They've been very effective at focusing in on particular parts of our culture and community and colleague base, and ensuring that they drive that agenda, they inform, they inspire, they educate, and make sure that colleagues who are from within that demographic or that group feel supported and that feel they can be their whole selves at work. We've got some that are very established, like, for example, the Young Professionals Group, Pride for our LGBT plus group of colleagues. Our multicultural network is one of the newer ones into the group. Our latest one is the accessibilities, looking at those who have both visible and non-visible disabilities, and for those in care with caring responsibilities. But what you'll also see there is Balance. So, as I mentioned at the start, this is our group for gender equality and inclusion. It's very focused on promoting women's potential and opportunity within the business. That presents some challenges, and of course we do leach out into some other associated areas, but we try and keep our focus really quite heavily on the balance for women in our business and in our industry, which, you know, it does, as I say, present some challenges, but we think by keeping our focus very much in that space, bringing men to the table in the allyship conversation, we think that we will achieve a great deal. So with that, I'll pass over to Leslie, my co-chair for Balance, and she'll go into a bit more detail, perhaps.
Thanks, Matt. And if you could, Vanessa, go on to the next slide. So as Matt was saying, our mission at Balance is to promote a gender inclusive workplace at Marsh, to allow for the advancement of women's careers at Marsh. And given the context of the insurance industry, that's actually a fairly challenging mission. You know, we often talk about what we want for Marsh is to be able to attract and retain and develop the best talent available in the industry. And now we're really looking beyond the industry. And one of the challenges of that is insurance doesn't have the best reputation as a place for women to work. And we are really trying to do some PR to change that. Balance is probably one of the most established of our colleague resource groups. In the last few years, I really feel at least that our efforts
That's really cool.
Sort of supercharged by the fact that we've had such
just jumped onto Vanessa's.
Sorry. Hopefully everybody can hear me.
We can. It's all right. I've text the person to go on mute. Sorry, carry on.
All right, thank you. We've become much more effective with, although we always had support from senior management at Marsh, I think the focus of the last few years has really allowed us to work together with senior management in a way that has made Balance and the other colleague resource groups much more effective. We've also been sort of evolving our structure over time to try and make the most of the many people in the business that have real passion and enthusiasm for the issues that we try to address. So we currently have kind of a management committee that focuses in on key areas, and particularly within that committee, people who are responsible for different work streams, which I'll speak a little bit more. And the idea is to diffuse responsibility for different initiatives as much as possible through that passionate community that we have. We also have an executive sponsor, Elsa King, who is terrific and who is on our main board in the UK. And that really allows us to make sure that we are hearing things immediately as the board is discussing issues that touch on gender, and that there's somebody at the table that knows the Balance perspective. And one of the challenges of the way our group works is that, you know, we tend to be there's always a danger of being too London centric. And so we've really been working to make sure that we have regional leaders represented on the committee, and not just people who are champions and reaching out to the regions, but actually making sure that all those voices are at the table. You can go on to the next slide. So we focus in 4 major areas. We probably have the most experience in doing events. Those are both events internal to support colleagues. A lot of those are around parenting or just sharing career journeys. We have a real role model lunch and learn series that's very popular. But we also do a number of external events, and we have a couple of really exciting ones coming up. Particularly, we do an annual event with our clients and prospects. Last year, Simon Gallo from UN Women, who is on, was a speaker at our event. This year, we're doing an event on the effective use of data for D&I efforts, and trying to provide some pointers about the pitfalls of how data can be misused and how to best use it to get a true picture of what's going on and how to move things forward. We also are doing some events partnering with our other CRGs for the upcoming Menopause Awareness Month. And we recently did a really important series on financial resilience. We've been really focusing on women's financial resilience and the pension gap financial planning for the last couple of years, and in large part partnering with the Chartered Institute for Insurance, which has had a real focus in that area as well. Increasingly, we also provide feedback and give input to the company's strategy around key gender initiatives. So Addressing the gender pay gap has been enormously important for us in the last few years. And on a kind of a parallel initiative is that Marsh is a signatory to the Women in Finance Charter. So we are continually consulting with management about how to get better representation at the senior levels of the more senior ranks of the company, which is really our challenge in those areas. Of course, we try to maximize our relationships within our group and within the wider community of networks, as in our participation with gender networks. And key to that has, again, been our partnership with UN Women. And we have been working with Simon on their new their latest generation of their He for She initiative. And we're also working with our sister company.
I was thinking instead of just booking somewhere, just saying
to organize a workshop around,
even though there's a lot of us,
allyship for at which we have an Aspire coaching program where we partner with the Insurance Supper Club for that. So with that, I don't want to take up more time than I'm allowed, unless there are any questions. I'll turn it back over to you, Vanessa.